This is the Bay Area's news station. KRON 4 News starts now with breaking news.
And that breaking news that we are following this Saturday morning is in Oakland, where 2 people were killed in a fire overnight. Take a look at this new video that shows the intense flames there. 2 buildings were damaged. This all happened near Interstate 980 and San Pablo Avenue. The fire started on 24th Street, then spread to 23rd Street. KRON 4's Mike Pelton live at the scene in Oakland. And Mike, what have you learned so far?
Well, Marty, Oakland fire crews are still here on the scene, and crews tell me that as firefighters were responding to this blaze, they found the bodies of 2 adults inside a back apartment up on the second story of that apartment building behind me. And this was a fire that spread to 2 buildings early this morning. And take a look as flames shot into the air as Oakland fire crews say the blaze erupted on the second story of an apartment building on 24th Street near Martin Luther King Way. The blaze then spread to a second mixed-use building on 23rd Street. Fire crews did call for 3 alarms, which required about 40 firefighters. Now, once they got into the apartment building, that's when they found 2 bodies of 2 adults inside the second floor apartment towards the back. Now, at this point, firefighters believe they died as a result of the fire, but Oakland police are here working a joint investigation to rule out anything suspicious. A fire investigator is also here as crews continue to mop up this morning.
Well, we're checking for hot spots. We're performing salvage and overhaul, making sure that there's no more hidden embers in here that could catch the buildings back on fire. We're salvaging, making sure that valuables are protected. We have extensive fire and water damage throughout both buildings, and we want to make sure that the property is as secure as possible.
Investigators will work to determine cause and origin of the fire. Crews are not able to say more about the 2 victims other than they are 2 adults and that one of them is a man, and many residents do fear that a handful of cats also died in the blaze. Now, we're told that somewhere between 35 and 40 people are displaced as a result of the fire. The Red Cross was here earlier this morning helping them find a temporary place to stay. And Marty, coming up at 8 o'clock, you'll hear from one resident about what it looked like inside that building the moment the fire broke out. Marty.
All right, that is Mike Pelton reporting live from Oakland this morning. Another breaking news story to tell you about also this morning is from New York, where 7 children were killed in a fire in Brooklyn early this morning. All of those children were between the ages of 5 and 15, and according to local media reports. A mother and her 8 children were trapped inside the blaze. The mother and her surviving child jumped out of a window to escape the flames. They're listed this morning in critical condition. The fire broke out just after midnight. More than 100 firefighters responding to the scene. Firefighters have just held a press conference, and they're talking about the possible cause of the fire.
Firefighters forced their way in, extinguished fire on the first floor, which had started in the kitchen, pushed upstairs, and found the children in their bedrooms in the back of the home. This is the largest tragedy by fire that this city has had in 7 years.
Firefighters also say there did not appear to be any smoke detectors in the house. These are photos that were taken early this morning showing the cleanup and the aftermath of the fire. We'll continue to have updates for you this morning as more details become available. New this morning, we're just getting our first look inside Louis Armstrong International Airport in New Orleans. This following an attack by a man on TSA officers. He had a machete and bug spray. You're taking a look at cell phone video that was shot by a passenger in the terminal. In it, you can see TSA officers on stretchers who are being treated by paramedics. Officials say a man was shot 3 times after storming through security checkpoints and attacking the TSA officers. The man is identified this morning as 63-year-old Richard White. Officials say he first sprayed a TSA officer in the face with wasp killer. 2 more officers confronted him, and that's when officials say he pulled out a machete.
One was a female, one was a male. He sprayed the male in the face. He struck the female with a machete that he pulled out at that point in time and had a laceration across the upper right arm.
Photo of White on the ground. You can see the machete lying on the ground nearby. White underwent surgery after being shot in the chest, face, and leg. There's no word on his condition this morning. Officials say the TSA officers also being treated for their injuries. All right, we're bringing it back home to the Bay Area. We are now officially well into spring as it sprung yesterday, and we're expecting the first weekend of spring to be fantastic. A gorgeous weekend across the Bay Area as we take a live look outside over the Embarcadero from our camera here at on the Embarcadero. And we want to turn now to Dan Rubin with a look at the weekend forecast. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Marty. It is looking pretty good, although we could see some rain this weekend. It's certainly not going to be quite as warm as we've been getting used to anyways. This is a live look over SFO. You can see a lot of cloud coverage all around the Bay. That could bring some rain to the North Bay later this evening. I'll touch on that in a second. For temperatures right now, we're looking at 55 from San Francisco, Concord sitting at 57, San Carlos 55, Livermore right at 54. Now for your weather headlines, we have the morning clouds going to burn off a little bit in the afternoon, but not completely, at least partly cloudy conditions for most of us. Certainly not as warm, a few degrees cooler than yesterday, which was a few degrees cooler than the day before that. So we are in the midst of a cooling trend. Sunday, we could see some morning sprinkles, especially later in the evening on Sunday. That could carry over into Monday evening as well, or Monday morning rather, excuse me, where we could see some scattered showers. Not a real strong organized system that's going to bring inches and inches of rainfall, but perhaps half an inch or so in some of the higher elevations. Not outside the realm of possibility because of this is sitting off of our coast rather, moving towards us out in the Pacific. It will dissipate a little bit as it reaches land, but it could carry some rain as we're seeing right now closer to the California-Oregon border. So we'll talk more specifics in terms of where and when a little bit later. Marty.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dan. Happening now, police in the East Bay are searching for a gunman who shot a teenager in front of a high school. That shooting happened just before 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon outside of El Cerrito High. A school resource officer reported a 19-year-old man had been shot twice in the arm. Officers ordering a lockdown and then went door to door looking for the gunman and a group of 3 suspects who were seen by neighbors. This is video from our helicopter partnership with ABC 7 News. Several other police agencies were called in to help with the search. Officers detaining 2 juveniles for questioning, but police are still looking for the shooter.
We rarely have this type of violent crime. Doesn't mean it never happens, but it doesn't happen very often. And it obviously rarely happens anywhere near the high school. We do pride ourselves in our school resource officer program, and I think it speaks to that program that our school resource officer happened upon this incident.
The lockdown at the high school lasted several hours while officers conducted their investigation. School officials say that no students were involved in the shooting and none were injured. Still ahead on KRON 4 News Weekend, it's officially spring, and for some that means gardening. Coming up, we'll explain how one popular weed killer could be linked to serious illnesses for those who use it. Also, if you're heading to AT&T Park this year, you might notice something new in the parking lot. We'll show you the new shopping center built entirely out of old shipping containers. And are vitamins necessary for children? Coming up after the break, we'll take a look at how exactly important they are for a child's diet, and the answer might surprise you. We spend more than $30 billion a year on vitamins and supplements, and a large portion of that is on vitamins for kids. But just how important are they to a children's diet? Holly Furfer has the answer.
Cartoon characters, bright colors, different flavors. The vitamin world is speaking to kids. But when it comes to taking daily supplements, pediatricians say children don't necessarily need them.
Healthy children who eat a normal, well-balanced diet do not need vitamins. Now, that exception, kind of a big one, and that is vitamin D. And what we know is that most children here in the U.S. do not meet their RDA for vitamin D.
That RDA for kids between the ages of 1 and 18 is 600 international units a day, the equivalent of 32 ounces or 4 cups of fortified milk, or 4 servings of fortified dairy products such as yogurts and cheeses.
Since most children aren't getting that amount of milk, calcium is also part of that. So we often do recommend a calcium supplement along with the vitamin D.
One final word of caution for parents.
The only issue would be to make sure that you're putting that out of reach, just like any other medicine, because they look and they taste like candy, especially the gummies.
Holly Furfer, KRON 4 News.
Coming up a little bit later in this broadcast, the Golden State Warriors, hey, no stopping them. Giant fans hate this guy, but Kershaw got smacked in the mug. That's coming up a little bit later in this broadcast.